Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Hinote with VRM Intel. I'm here today with Ed Ulmer, who is the president and CEO of Barefoot. We're having a conversation today that actually Ed and I have been having for a long time about the asset management side of property management. As we started, talking to financial advisors and people who actually were doing portfolio management services, I think Ed and I just had some conversations about the similarities in other types of asset management in the vacation rental industry. So we got together and he's put together a presentation about this. So Ed, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you have any questions there should be a question box on your GoToWebinar panel. You can just type it in there and I will get it and read it for Ed. So anyway, Ed, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. And I will turn this over to you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Amy. And yes, thank you for the opportunity to do this. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Barefoot's been thinking about for a long time. Amy and I have had many conversations about this. I think we actually did a session on asset management about 7 years ago at VRMA, and have done a number of them. Yeah, we've done a number of them since then. Initially, most people gave us good reviews about it, but there was some confusion. It was a little mixed. I honestly think it was maybe ahead of its time. But I really do believe that now is the time for you all to really kind of consider this model. It's very important. The industry is changing a lot, has changed a lot. There's a lot of new players. Asset management, I believe, is a way forward for you guys to continue to be successful. So before we get started, I guess I should introduce myself. Many of you probably have met me. I've done a number of presentations on stage. This is like my second webinar, so I'm standing right now and my hands are moving all over the place and I'm pacing. So I'm a little new to webinars, so bear with me a little bit if I stumble and so on. So I'm the past director of tourism in Bar Harbor, Maine, and in Plymouth, Mass. Both organizations were startups because the Chamber of Commerce did such a terrible job. They felt that they were an institution and that everything that they did, which was stuck in time, was the right thing to do. They blamed the economy, they blamed other agencies, the quality of the tourist product, geography, for their lack of success. And so the local businesses saw things differently and decided, hey, if not now, then when? And they decided to move in a different direction. And I was lucky enough to be part of that perspective. I worked with a guy named Tom Murphy, who changed Stowe, Vermont from a sleepy ski town into a four-season resort. So any of you who've ever been to Stowe realize this. It's up in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, but it's beautiful, just like a lot of your towns are and so on. But they were really able to make a difference. It is probably the premier resort town in Vermont. So it's very lucky to be part of that perspective. And he thought outside the box. I have my real estate license in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. I did vacation rentals, I did commercial leasing, I sold real estate in Massachusetts, and now I live in New Hampshire and I sit on the MLS board for New Hampshire and Vermont. And with the organizations that I work with, we have a lot of discussions about the real estate industry and how it's struggling, how it stays relevant when you have all of these third parties and competitors that are coming in that don't really follow the standard rules of real estate. I am also an owner of Barefoot, so I got to do a little bit of a shameless plug here about Barefoot. We are a very consultative company. We have that approach. And as a result, we have about a 96% retention rate with an average client size of about 230 units. Client size is a little misleading because different markets have different sizes. But the market leaders tend to always be, the largest companies in those markets. And we tend to work with those types of companies. And as a result, I have the opportunity to be reflective with my smart clients. They give us a lot of ideas and we share things with them, including this whole asset management concept, and have been very lucky that most of them have embraced it and started doing more and more of these things. An interesting statistic that I just recently looked at. Only about 45% of our companies are using portals significantly. Another 15% of them just kind of fill in their open blocks. Again, I think this is interesting because this is not where I am seeing the industry going overall. Our clients are tending to try and hold on to their niche, to who they are, and so on. Although they will use these portals, um, they're trying to make it a secondary kind of model. So that's about Barefoot. So let's start off this conversation kind of like what everybody else is starting off every conversation about. Let's talk a little bit about COVID-19 and I guess how it relates to asset management. At least, we're focusing on that here. So most of you guys, well, maybe some of you have a stock portfolio. And I guess my question is, did you get out of the market before the significant drop? Probably most of you didn't. With these stimulus plans and the debt associated with all of this, how do you think this is going to end up working for your stock portfolio? I don't have a big stock portfolio, but the bottom line is I have no idea. And that's one of the main reasons why many of us work with a stock manager if they are going to invest in a stock portfolio. It's their full-time job to understand and manage this process. We put our faith, our money, our lifestyle, our livelihood, in their hands, and they make a good living off of that. Historically, they're called asset managers. Their job is to take a client's asset, and actually I'm going to highlight to this next page because this is really important. Their job is to take a client's asset and protect and grow them in a way that benefits their owners. And maybe for retirement, education, to purchase a home, to deal with health issues, for charity, and about a million other things. So in most recent times, we've seen some changes in asset managers. They're called electronic asset managers like E-Trade. They've become really popular. And while they give you articles and data and the ability to trade, it's really a do-it-yourself model. I consider these guys like VRBO and Airbnb to kind of be reflective. There are also other asset management companies that are out there, which are a combination of electronic and consultative brokers, usually called discount brokers. You work with them over the phone, but most things are again done electronically. I actually consider these guys like the national players within our industry. So in this economy, where would you rather be as a holder of an asset? Those with smaller assets usually work with the electronic or discount brokers. It's almost more of a hobby. Those who have larger assets tend to work with the professionals. Now, most of you probably put your faith in another type of asset, properties. In fact, for most people, their biggest asset is their property, typically your primary home. Stock asset managers don't touch your properties. It's a different type of commodity. So who do owners turn to manage this important asset? Sure, NAR states that real estate agents sell homes every 11 years. So real estate agencies help with that process, but that's reactive. Insurance companies, participate in the management of that home, but they typically are, you're buying your insurance policy, and then if there's a claim, that's really the only time they touch you. Again, another reactive thing. There's really no one actively trying to add value to that asset. And the same is true for vacation rental units, which according to NAR on average are 200 miles from the owner, and it's only sold every 9 years. Well, how can you manage how can an owner manage that property from that far away? Of course, that's where you come in and you say, well, that's what I do. But almost everything you do is reactive if you think about it. You fix stuff when it breaks. If you're one of those people that uses portals a lot, you make reservations, but of course it comes through the portal. You clean, you evict, excuse me. This is all reactive. There's no one actively trying to add value to the home. There's no one really looking after the entire commodity, only small parts of it. Remember the phrase that I had earlier there. Asset managers get paid to protect and grow the owner's asset based off the owner's goals. Do you guys really even know what the owner's goals are? So before we go any further on this, we're going to go back to COVID a little bit and a few observations I think that make sense in this day. Number one, unlike stock, properties are tangible. They are in a location. They don't just disappear one day like our stock portfolios do. When we come back from COVID, I am pretty sure that every one of you who have a stock portfolio know that you're not going to get back to where you were in February. Those who own homes have a pretty safe investment. Their property didn't just drop 20 to 30% in value in 30 days and disappear. Number two, unlike stock, homes are insurable. So if a massive calamity comes along, and there seems to be a lot of them these days, at least you're somewhat protected. In the US, people hate loss, and why we all overinsure all aspects of our life, like our house, car, health, work. It's called unemployment insurance, and our life and death. And if life happens, which means basically a problem comes up, like a car accident, health insurance, we're quick to blame others and sue for compensation. We all pay significant money for this protection, and to some degree this trust in the United States that we got it covered. Number three, the New World Order. People are going to going to school and to work far more remotely, which means traditional vacation time periods will have new meaning. Both my daughters are at home right now. One's in high school and one's in college, and they're working electronically from home or anywhere, including a vacation home. So vacation time may change significantly. Keep that in mind as we come out of this. City life will change. Business life has changed. Many city jobs require going to an office. All these offices are now closed, and every business that has an office, or most of them at least, and have invested in remote technology and process. Much of that technology will stay in place, and companies will realize that remote employees can be just as efficient and far less expensive, which gives employees the ability to relocate or at least work from anywhere. Life on a family vacation, or whatever. Um, we've been seeing this for a while, and it's just kind of jump-started even faster. Number five, in the short term, most people have been cooped up inside either because of weather or because they live in the city and this whole COVID situation. As a result, when this thing starts to lift, we will see people wanting to get out and about. But the travel will probably be different for most people. Short drive markets to start, and some markets will start earlier than others. So be prepared for that, and it all is based upon knowledge about the local area and where they stand on things. Another very important one is before this is done, everyone will know somebody that has been affected by this pandemic. And times together will become more special. So whole house holidays with friends and family will become even more relevant. Remember, a vacation memory is made between people, not the things you do. And that will probably be the way things are to start off, because people will be a little afraid to kind of get out and do things. But coming together is maybe a wonderful thing. Number seven, a really important one. Cleaning has taken on a new meaning. It needs to be done correctly using science and by professionals. Number eight, in turmoil, relationships are won and lost. And this is one of the things that is most important for you all to do and to think about. And I'm going to talk about this in regards to RBO, because RBO owners realize that they have a limited good information on the state of their property and the market that they're located in. The portals that they use to manage their bookings aren't there to answer their questions, because they're not local in the market, and they're just struggling to be in existence. To be honest, they don't care about the local market or the property. All they do is book your property, and they can't do any bookings in this market right now. You and your asset are just a commodity, and they make money by providing low prices and automation. This is their value proposition, and RBOs see this weakness in these times. I'll give you a couple examples in a few minutes. Number 9, national players like Vacasa, Evolve, and Turnkey, the discount brokers of our industry, have downsized to stay afloat and more towards the electronic side of their business. Because they're not local, they're unable to give you good advice or the owners good advice. They're basically fair weather friends. Again, their value proposition is about being cheap. So the local asset manager, you, are become more and more valuable because you're able to have a conversation with those owners and those guests and give them, more details about what's going on locally and where their property stands. This is where you build trust, which from my perspective is a form of insurance. And we talked about that earlier, how important that is to Americans. So let's talk about being a property asset manager and a few of the many programs one can incorporate. A good way to think about this is for you to consider the needs on any property you own. So think about yourself and what you do with your properties on a daily basis. Second homeowners need the same thing, but again, they're 200 miles away. They actually need more. So some items may be daily, yearly, or just one time, but having strategies for all of them is really important. Our owners need this assistance in most cases because they are scattered and have no one handling their entire strategy. This concept is called client for life. If you positively affect the owner on an ongoing basis, you're building that trust and you're making money from these programs. What can you do to help the homeowner protect and grow the value of their property? Here's a short list. Okay, I lied. It's not really that short. It's pretty long, in fact. But what I really did here was I just stepped back and said, what are all of the things that I need, to manage my own house or my vacation home? And there is a lot here. And so most of you guys are going to say, well, I'm not going to be able to do all of that stuff. But to be honest, you probably already have relationships with many of these services and so on. Or your rental software offers these features. Somewhere in there is groups, rewards, concierge, and a whole bunch of things that we do. And other software products I'm sure do as well. The problem is you're not proactively assisting your clients. You help them out when they ask, but you're not sharing facts and making them go, geez, I never thought about that. Others of you say, well, I already do this. It's called property management. Or if you don't have E&O insurance, which I know is expensive, you just help the owner out around the house. But it is still property management. There's 2 ways to do this. Fix the stuff when it breaks and hope you make some money off of it, or be proactive. Understand how long the average refrigerator or AC lasts and share that information with the owner is really important. And of course, provide a replacement program or suggest warranty programs can make you some money and make you look like a hero. So you should be doing those, which leads me to an example, and it's my only negative example within this presentation. So a few years ago, I was talking to a property management company owner, and he owned a property right on the beach. I mean, right on the beach. It had huge aluminum windowed frame windows, and they looked out at the property and out at the ocean. He lived about 1,000 miles away, and he had bought the property as his future retirement home, but decided he wasn't ready to retire yet, and so he hired an agency to watch the property for him. It, of course, rented remarkably, but over time he noticed he wasn't making the money he used to. So he reached out to the agency and started looking at the reviews. Well, come to find out that the great view that he had with all those windows had become clouded. Yep, the aluminum frame windows had pitted and the seals had broken. So it ended up costing him about $250,000 to replace those windows. If the agency had only reached out and been proactive and said, hey, for an extra 25 bucks a clean, well, heck, 100 bucks per clean, I'll wipe the frames down so that they don't eventually fail. Those reviews that said that the property was dirty because it was sort of misrepresented, that he thought that the agency was not cleaning the property well enough, was actually because the windows had clouded and it made the property feel dirty. So the bottom line is with this, is that if the agency had only been more proactive on this, they would have saved this owner a tremendous amount of money. And obviously, they probably would still have a relationship together, but they don't. So let's go through a couple of other examples that are a little more proactive. We work with a company called Keys Vacation Rentals, Jeremy Grog. They're out of the outer beaches. They work really hard to acquire new rental properties for their rental program, and they are very much of a niche player. They tend to deal with big companies, they do weddings and groups and so on, and are very profitable because of that. They are very innovative and you all know, any of you that are on the outer beaches, probably about keys and how innovative they are and what a pain they are. But they really understand their niche. They're people that come from the real estate side of the industry. So they understand CMAs, comparative market analysis. And for those of you who don't know real estate, a CMA is a tool that you use to define what a property is worth. You basically take that property and you compare it to other properties that have been sold, and present it to the homeowner so that they understand exactly what the property is worth. So we have actually built a CMA specifically for our clients, but it's a rental program, a rental piece instead. You present it to the new owner to set expectation and start to build that trust with that owner. It's a professional document, and as I said, it sets expectation, very much like a stock manager does for its clients. It's also used to monitor success and remind the owner of their joint goals. It can also be used for a lot of other reasons as well. Here's a good example. So an owner has a 2-bedroom unit with a study. You can actually reach out to the homeowner because his goals are to stay in the property, or even maybe to sell the thing, and say, hey, you know what, if we change that study into a 3rd bedroom, you will be able to rent it for more. And that's what the CMA does. And then other things that you can do to kind of combine with that is, oh, by the way, you can write this thing off because it's a commercial property, at least for the next 4 years before you move into it. Oh, by the way, here's a quote on what it was going to cost to do it. Oh, by the way, we can manage this project for you. Oh, by the way, here's also what the property is going to be worth as a 3-bedroom compared to a 2-bedroom. Of course, you're not running the rental CMA there, you're running a real estate CMA. So I see 3 or 4 different ways you can make money off of this and provide services and build more trust with your owners. So here's, oh, you know what? I didn't go to the next slide. Here's kind of a quick example of some of the data that we collect to generate the CMA side of things. Give you another example, and most of you guys will really appreciate this one. So Ron Pickett from Cape San Blas, he's near Point St. Joe in Florida. He focuses on vacation rentals in the Cape San Blas Peninsula, just south of Mexico Beach in Florida. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this, because on October 10th, 2018, Hurricane Michael happened. Ron moved to higher ground and rode out the storm, and as the winds were starting to drop, he got out and got busy. He went around to the properties he managed and got ground and drone photos for his owners and sent them to the owners immediately, which immediately made the owners relax at least a little bit. Then he got additionally busy by reaching out to local contractors and to get quotes. He worked with the owners on insurance, and most important, he got the contractors started on those repairs. In addition, he went to the town and made sure that they could move forward because he had good connections there. It took about a good month before any outsiders were able to come into the area, including those RBO owners. By that time, pretty much all the local contractors were negotiating repairs a year out at a super premium. Of course, there were a whole bunch of new contractors in town from out of town that were offering their services for similar premium costs and supposedly similar warranties. But because they were not local, nor were the owners, so the owners didn't realize this in many cases, a lot of RBO owners made some bad decisions that are probably going to affect, you know, their property and their asset for years to come. And the million-dollar question is, will that warranty actually hold up? Ron cemented his relationship with his homeowners because he was quick, efficient, honest, and a great communicator, and his owners trust him now more than ever. He also brought in a number of new owners who realized the importance of being on the ground and good communication, and that you don't cheap out on your biggest asset. And he made money off those owners by providing services. And he was also able to get his rental property program back and up running and running faster to fill those outside contractors, those RBO owners, and then all of the other people that came in to try and get Mexico Beach back up and running again. Finally, there were some owners that were so devastated that they said, you know what, we're done and we want to sell. We want to get out. We're going to take our insurance money and just go. So he worked with them to get real estate sales. Another similar situation happened with the Ward Agency in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. This happened back when Hurricane Sandy hit. About 6 months earlier, he had entered in a relationship with a house raising company to be their local representative in the area. Paul's family has been in the business for a long time. He offers lots of services, including insurance, real estate, and both short and long-term rentals. He knew that flood laws were changing and that the cost would go up significantly in homes if you did not follow the new guidelines. Pretty much everyone in Point Pleasant was on a slab. A year after Hurricane Sandy, nothing was on a slab. Actually, a day after Hurricane Sandy, nothing was on a slab. While he rented, his rental and real estate business came to a halt, his insurance and house raising contracts were very successful in a town where pretty much everything had come to a standstill. And like Ron, he cemented his relationship with his owners. Give you one other example. Mike Connolly from Triumph Peak Properties. Many of you probably know Mike. He comes to a lot of the events. He manages the top 25 private properties in Vail. Mike Connolly is an accountant, although you'd never know it. He is the past CFO of National Geographics in London. His owners do not work with him because they need reservations or money. They work with him because they've bought multi-million-dollar homes in a market where there's extreme climate. When they're not there, they want the house to be used and taken care of because they realize that the lack of use means things break faster. Because they have money, they understand money. So Michael's job is to set owners' expectation of what it takes to keep the property up and running and in tip-top condition. And when the owners are there or a guest is there, Michael's team provides them, remarkable white glove service by providing concierge tools and everything that they need. By the way, this doesn't necessarily just mean activities. It means paying electrical bills, cable bills, service repairs, all kinds of things. And our software does that very well for him. Michael's team makes more money than many companies with 5 times as many properties by focusing on their niche, understanding and communicating with the owner, and hiring staff and technology to provide a great value proposition. In addition, he manages a bunch of other properties where all he does is do the caretaking, but he does it in a very proactive approach because no one likes surprises. So let's get a little more deeper into asset management and kind of big picture things for you to think about. I think the first thing is that realize that your owner is your most important asset, your asset. Without them, you have nothing to sell or manage. Most of us historically focus on the guest. Number 2, everything you do is about setting expectation and communicating, which is the basis of trust. You don't manufacture anything, really important. You guys don't manufacture anything. What you do is you sell trust. Everything that an owner needs is on the open market. Your job is to provide them professional information and give them a solution. Number 3, understand your niche and where you fall into it. And this is actually a little easier than I think most of us think. First of all, as the owner of companies, you tend to attract people that are similar to you, your ideal employees, and of course your owners. Number 2 is that owners were once guests. They fell in love with the area, fell in love with you, they bought a house, and now they work with you. in theory, that's your niche. All you need to do is truly understand that owner, and you've probably got a pretty good understanding of at least one of your niches and so on. And I have a couple of suggestions for you that are similar to what stock asset managers do. They get together with their owners once a year, ideally face to face, but in this day and age, probably over the phone. And they ask a bunch of questions about the asset and about themselves. One, why did you buy the property? Two, what are the goals you're looking to do with this property, including your exit strategy? Number three, what is your golden number? This is a term I've phrased, but basically what it means is how much do you need to make this year for this to be a successful year? If you have a gauge for what will be successful, then it becomes really easy for you to focus on, okay, am I going to be successful or not? And if you start to fail at that, you have the opportunity to reach out to that homeowner and say, hey, this is why we have problems. In theory, you're setting expectation properly, and you should always be successful. And then the last item I would say, which is something that you ask every year after the first year, is have any of these goals changed over the last year? Obviously, probably the last one that is probably the most important one is to truly try and understand who that owner is. Where else do they go on vacation? The bottom line with that is that that is probably a market that you compete against. What do they like to do while they're on vacation? That information will allow you to build the right concierge services so that you can provide them, with what their needs are and so on, and who they are. Some small real estate tricks like sending birthday and anniversary cards, knowing the dog's names, remembering their oldest daughter just got into Harvard for a hospitality major, are small tricks that build that trust and relationship. And oh, by the way, I just use that example in particular because that child may now be a great summer employee for you, which would help build more of a relationship. The more you understand them, the more you can offer services to assist them. Make sure this is another important thing, make sure you make them aware of your value. Things you include in your services. The freebies should never be free. They should be valued and then discounted and documented. Good owner statements, strong work order systems, and strong owner access tools documenting your value are really important. And again, always be proactive. So let's get a little deeper into this. Here are some of the services and that I'm going to go a little deeper in. Obviously, there is a big list of those things that we won't be able to get into all of them. But number one is vacation rentals. From my perspective, I see as a combination of real estate and hospitality. So from my perspective, those are the low-hanging fruit. If you have a real estate division, you need to give the owners sales CMAs each year so that you can remind them that you do sales and what the value of their property is. If it's gone up, if it's gone down, all of those things are important to them. If you don't do sales, then you should hook up with an agency. And honestly, if you can get your license, referral fees are pretty significant. If you are doing sales, the other thing too, we talked about this client for life scenario, guests are potential buyers. So share available properties. And if the house they rent goes up for sale, let them know. I have 2 agencies that paid for their system within 2 months by using this technique and just reaching out to homeowners. Both got full cash offers, no contingencies, and closed in 30 days because the owner had lived there or rented there for years. The second item of this is hospitality, and that's all about concierge. Owners come down to their home and they act like guests. Provide them the services, especially discounted services, can be super powerful. Good software system can manage that upsell. In addition, it should be able to track, what is unique about that owner, what their favorite coffee is, what their favorite wine is, what their kids' favorite ice cream is, and of course, you want to put those into the home to make them feel special. The next thing is all owners have things in common. Here are a few. They all need insurance on their home. Many of them bought their home, bought their insurance, and forgot that insurance companies increase their premiums 1.5% every year. So after a number of years, are they actually, do they have the best value proposition with their insurance? So you should be reminding the owner and then giving them some options, possibly local options, for them to switch their insurance, or at least get an estimate on this stuff. Again, the local insurance company, in theory, should be able to provide their insurance back if there's a calamity that happens nearby. And again, if you can get into insurance, that's a wonderful thing. Ward Real Estate does very well. Commissions are pretty significant. All owners need to pay utilities. Considering offering these services, and good software will pay these bills very easily. Managing services leads you to a number of different things. When bills spike, like an electrical bill or something like that, it typically means that something is needing replacement, like a furnace, like an AC or something like that. Number two, organizing bills for owners and presenting them efficiently at tax time is usually appreciated. It may not make you any money, but it gives you goodwill. Number three, oil and electrical bills, or excuse me, oil and electricity are commodities. By working with your local supplier and buying in bulk, you may be able to get a discount on those services, and you could split that with the owner. Negotiating with a furnace cleaner to come and clean the entire neighborhood probably will get you a discount as well. Some services can be turned from an expense into income. We have a number of clients who've gone into the laundry and trash business. When they looked at the cost of what they were paying for laundry and trash, they realized that this could be a huge profit center, and they could better manage and control the quality of the product. This has become really popular with our clients recently. Again, the homeowner lives 200 miles away. They cannot manage the property without, when calamity rears its head, or of course, you can be part of the insurance game with the owner, and you can be significantly helpful. Some things that are more local, from my perspective, that may not generate tons of money, but are still really important. Number one, remind the owner, of course, that you are local and the benefits of that. Properties with extreme environments, that's why you need a caretaker who has insurance, has connections with the local government and contractors. We already talked a little bit about that. Number two, really important, you all know this, if a big party breaks out in a home, you can evict, unlike an RBO situation, which requires a call from a neighbor at 2 a.m. and someone calling the police who can throw them into jail or fine them, but cannot evict them. Number three, highlighting stories of scams. And we all have stories of scams, but we try and repress them. We should not be repressing them. We should be talking about them, because almost all of these scams are coming from portals with RBOs and owners, and fake properties as well. To add to that, you have to be proactive in managing on the safety side of your property. There are many horror stories of guests being killed, burned, houses catching on fire, owners being sued. A good safety program will make you money, and reiterate that without someone local who understands code and the past horror stories, your asset may be in jeopardy. I am part of your insurance plan, is basically what you're saying there. Of course, adding cleaning into your conversation is very important, that you follow rigorous training programs and you've got cleaning strategies. That's very important. And of course, there's lots of other ones that are listed on my list there. So a lot of you are basically saying, yeah, I do a lot of this stuff, but are you actively promoting this as part of your value proposition? It's just sitting in the background. Asset management is proactive, and you need to be proactively highlighting it. Let me finish off by explaining why this is so important. Every day, electronic platforms and national players are building brands to drive guests to book through them. They need inventory to be successful, really important, because they're a marketplace. So they ask you to link and work with them. You do so because it's easier. You get a guest and you're happy to pay a fee. Most of them have an RBO component. Of course, they tell you Well, not everybody wants to work with a full service asset management company. That's why trades out there. But in reality, they realize that they make more money cutting the middleman out. This is a trend that is happening in the taxi business with Uber, in the retail business with Amazon, in the insurance business, in the real estate business, and of course in the vacation rental business. Their goal is to drive you out of business. Now, this is not a bad thing. This is just a new model, and you need to adapt. Well, driving you out of business is a bad thing, but the bottom line is you need to adapt because it's coming. They're trying to duplicate your value proposition, but do it for less money. Think about it. They provide guests, they take credit cards, they pay taxes, they're providing revenue management tools now, and some do cleaning. If that's all you do, guess what? You're in trouble. If an owner looks at you at 20% and compares you to a portal that's charging 10% for the same services, which way do you think they're going to go? And that's part of the reason why verbos have become more popular. The key for you is to be the local expert. You have to embrace this and use all aspects of this to, to show that you're worth your 20%. But you also need to think about this model, this new model yourself. How can you cut out the middleman? You do it by owning the services. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you got to do all of it, although in some cases it makes sense. In some cases, it may mean for you to work with somebody that you brand as part of who you are. In other words, you present the opportunity to the owner because they need it, and it's a service that you work with through a third party, but it's branded for you. So obviously, all of this stuff requires you to do a lot of things, and it requires you to have additional abilities, which is why Barefoot has worked so hard to become the most dynamic trust accounting system in the industry. There's a difference between trust accounting systems. Again, you don't manufacture anything. You put services and people together, and the accurate management of money plays a huge part of trust, and Barefoot offers the best tools and management for that. Now, I'd like to talk to you about guest management a little bit here. All we've talked about is owner management here. Asset management is the management of an asset that has value. And so guests, I would suggest their vacation is that asset. Resort stays have grown because guests do not have the time to plan their entire vacation. They work their entire year for their holiday, and in theory, are looking for a one-stop shop, which is part of the reason why a lot of these guys go to these portals. But the portals fall down on the experience side of things. Yeah, they do a good job on transportation and lodging, but it's that experience side of things that makes all the difference in the world. And they are working really hard to try and get that experience, but failing pretty badly at it. This is where your expertise is. You are local. You do not want to give up this part of the business. You need to stop being a vacation rental company, and you need to start being a vacation company. You need to be a vacation company. It's super important. Um, so to sum things up, oops, I missed another slide here. So if a guest falls in love with the area, they buy a home, they sell a home, they buy another home, and so on. So client for life, we talked about that a little earlier. It's all this wonderful circle. And if you touch the guest and the owner enough, you build that trust, and you make a tremendous amount of money on this. So the bottom line is be as sticky as possible with your owners. Mike Connolly is making money now, not doing rentals. Ward Realty is making money now, not doing rentals. A good stock asset manager makes money in good times and bad times. And in bad times, they are appreciated more because they mean more questions come up, and so on. I said at the beginning of this presentation that Barefoot had spent a lot of time on this concept. It is one of our main driving pieces. Most of those that are in my space as competitors and so on are not focusing on that. They're focusing on making it easier for you to tie to portals. We believe that that is important, but our real focus is on how to make you as strong as possible with your owners. Because again, the portals without the properties are nothing. So they need you. Don't give it away. If any of this was an aha moment, we need to talk. That's it. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully
And let
this
me
makes
ask you a
sense.
couple of questions about this,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yep.
One of the things we talked about is risk management. And I think going back to like what's happened with COVID-19, one of the things that it has happened in our industry over the last decade, for a long time, it was just the property manager who was merchant of record. And when companies started getting access to the money, essentially, so they started to be able to become merchant of record, we saw some things happen. I mean, obviously, we saw a Leisure Link situation in the past. I think we're going to see two of those in the next few couple of months, at least. And then, of course, we've watched Airbnb run out of cash almost overnight, you know what I mean, and go out and raise $1 billion at 10% plus equity. So I think my question is, if you're managing risk using a portal or a channel manager that is a merchant of record, is that an acceptable risk going forward?
It's a great question. I think everybody has their own answer to that. Obviously, you're going to. My mentality of this is that you are the local expert. You're a vacation company. You use portals to fill in things, not necessarily make it your entire business. And for these portals that are managing the money side of things, many of you fall under real estate law. So you have a fiduciary responsibility to pay those owners. When that reservation occurs, you have that fiduciary responsibility to pay that owner. And if that portal is holding the money and they can't pay you, where does that put you? In real
Yeah.
estate situations, the owner is going to complain to the real estate commission, and the guest is going to complain to the real estate commission. They're going to go out and they're going to start a case against you, and the bottom line is you're going to end up having to deal with it. With Leisure Link in particular, the economy was really strong when that happened. So most companies that got burned by that just sucked it up and paid the money because they didn't want to deal with the real estate commission, which can put them out of business. And if it's a real bad experience, then they'll go to the attorney general and threaten to put you in jail. So it's a tough question to answer 100%. Again, real estate companies, those that do real estate, are used to seeing fluxes in the economy. Everything's doing great, and then it all fails overnight. So they are pretty smart when it comes to managing their money and understanding their risk. Those that don't do real estate are probably a little less, but that doesn't mean you can't think like a real estate agency. You should, as I said in this presentation, try and get involved with that, or at least have relations with that side of things. I don't know. That make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. Just from the view that you and I both have, we know we're starting to see some of these channel managers getting real holes across the spectrum.
Yep.
They're behind. Some of them were behind. Two were behind going into COVID.
Yep.
Before it started. So, but I'm not laughing at that at all. I'm just saying the absurdity of continuing. For me, if it were my company right now, I think I would black out a calendar for anyone who owed me money that's a merchant of record channel manager right now.
Yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
think that's probably the decision I would make.
Yeah,
But
and then
like
the other thing, yeah, the other thing obviously is you need to share this stuff with your owners, because you're setting, it's all about setting expectation here, and they have expectation if there's a reservation that they're going to get
make their
paid
own.
for it. Yeah.
The other thing is, we talked about, you mentioned about kind of the financial advisor comparison, that if you're getting someone to manage your stock portfolio, they're going to meet with you, find out what your goals are, Um, are you willing to take on more risk or less, that kind of thing. And so on the homeowner side, I guess on the rental side, it's like, what do you want from your vacation rental? Do you want for us to manage the home so that it's, you can make some income on the side, but you're
Yep.
going to use it as primarily for personal use? Or are you trying to appreciate the asset for a sale? Or
Yep.
do you really need the income on an ongoing basis? And I do think that COVID-19 will change. Let me ask you, do you think that the owner profile will change coming out of this?
Well, I think everybody is coming out of this is changed. Uh,
Yeah.
the dilemma is, how bad is, so there's risk in any asset. On property, as I said already, it's tangible, so it just doesn't disappear overnight. But how much you have in a mortgage, can play a huge difference in all of this. I think it's like 34 or 5% of properties are cash positive in vacation rentals, and that's because they have low mortgages. So, depending on what your mortgage is and what your ability to handle this is, will make a big difference. The other thing too is, and I only mentioned this a little bit in the presentation. We are going to come out of this. I don't really think that this is one day. Everybody's going to say, okay, everything's open. Let's all get on planes and let's, go around the world and life continues as is. I believe that kind of like what happened in China, that things will slowly get back to normal. There will be certain areas that you'll be able to do. Most people won't want to get on a plane immediately. So again, being able to communicate with your owners and the local population as they come out of this. Hey, I'm just going to use Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is now open for business, and letting the owners know that, so that the owners can share that with their connections and stuff like that. The social media side of things, is probably a good step. So everybody's going to be affected by this. It really depends on what one's mortgage is and so on. And that might be something that you might need to talk to your owners about. It's actually not a bad thing, because if you're managing the entire asset, you want to know how much they've got on their mortgage. You want to know that golden number that they've got, how much cushion do they really have in that? And in that cushion may be the opportunity for you to get really creative on the pricing side of things. It's a lot like, regular dynamic pricing sides of things. How much flexibility can you give me? And the more of this stuff that you can do, and the more you understand and listen to them. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. Listen to me. I've been talking for an hour about myself and the stuff that I love. So if you share that information, then you can really become, super helpful to these people.
Kathleen is on the call. She had a question, but I think it went away, but I may have deleted it. So I'm going to try to unmute her and see if she can ask it. But Kathleen, if you don't want to be unmuted, you just don't have to say anything. Sorry. Say surprise.
Hey,
Kathleen, are
no,
you
that's
there?
great. Yeah, thank you. So it's a great conversation about asset management, and in particularly, we have what I like to say, given it away to our owners. It's always been a sell point for our company as compared to some others over the years. But as we move to this new normal, we really are talking about how can we become more of an asset manager, more of a management than just a vacation rental, and how do I do that? Because the owners are so trained and spoiled by getting everything for free. How do I go to an environment where I can now charge them for the things that they've already been getting?
Yep. So I think number one, one of the situations there, one of the things that you really need to do is you need to break from the normal, which is one of the reasons why you need to sit down with that owner. I don't know if you do that now, but sit down with that owner and say, look, after COVID, everything has changed here. For you, for me, you've got this wonderful property. We love it. But, why did you buy it? What are you thinking about it? How are you going to use the thing? Really sink your teeth into that. So that's number one. Number two is, again, every one of these owners, that list that I showed, those are everything. That is the stuff that they do. You're just not part of that. So as you get deeper into that conversation with them and you start to understand, what do they think of their insurance company? Hey, did you know that, your insurance, you've owned this house for 10 years and you're paying, 30% more than you did when you first bought the place. Has the property gone up 30%? Well, you know what? I got a couple of local providers that may be able to help you. Then they, the more that they start to share with you, not all of this stuff necessarily has to be right in their face. Hey, I'm going to charge you for that. I'm going to charge you for that. A lot of this stuff is, hey, I can make your life easier, and there's a value associated with that, which they'll appreciate. And they don't have a problem spending money because they're already spending money on this stuff. They're just not spending it with you. It's just out in the open marketplace. So it's about, kind of building that trust and listening and being part of who they are, and that property is, a part of them. Make them part of your family and them vice versa. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I also think that advanced level reporting, I think we have a long way to go in our industry on reporting. And like once the quarterly or monthly reports that homeowners get look very different and much more like a portfolio management report, I think that will change kind of the perspective and the discussion from, yeah, I think that one thing is we've had a lot of rental managers, and I don't mean property managers, I mean like the staff that actually the owner relations people that maybe are not really on the same level as the homeowner, so they don't get the respect they deserve. And I believe some advanced reporting could actually help property managers get the respect they need to make these decisions to move into asset management. But
I would actually suggest that not only the advanced reports, but some of the simple reports. RBO is all about the owner participating. They want to know what the heck is going on. It is their hobby. They're trying to turn it into a career. So most owners, not all of them, but most owners kind of fall somewhere in that spectrum there. So sharing information with them is not a bad thing. It used to be terrible. Real estate industry, 20 years ago was like, don't, you don't want to know anything about this. I'm the professional. Let me handle it. I got you covered. It's not like that in real estate. It's not like that in rentals anymore. So sharing even simple stuff. I mentioned this golden number concept. What do you need to make this year? That golden number should be recorded within your system. That golden number should be recorded within your owner's statements so that they can see where they stand in that goal. That golden number also would if it's low, should be kind of an additional conversation at 6 months. Hey, we're actually running behind here. Well, the reason is because of COVID. And if we're going to come out of this, and you really do need this number because your mortgage is X and you've only got Y, then I'm going to need to have you help with this. For example, we have a tool within our system in our owner access piece. It's an advanced owner access piece where the owners actually have their own website. So what you do is you say, Mr. Owner, reach out to your social network. They're all in the same area as you. You now know that this area is safe. So let those people know that this place is safe. And oh, by the way, you've got a property. So there's lots of different ways. And that's very similar from my perspective to a stock manager going, we're going to get you out of, stocks and put you into bonds because things are going to, really go bad here. So advanced reports important, simple reports just as important.
Right. I see that. One of the things as far as the real estate management, if you look at it from a commercial real estate asset management profile, that they're trying to appreciate the value of the property that sits in the value, and and then like you want the home to sell at the top of the community, in the top of the destination, in the top of other like destinations. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to really get that value up locally, and as you spread out. One of the things you and I talked about briefly before we started our call was the value of working in the community and the destination.
Yep.
Can you speak to that for a second?
Yeah. So I live in a little town in New Hampshire. There are really good contractors and there are really bad contractors. And I live in town, so I know what is good and what is bad. And so somebody that lives 200 miles away doesn't. So by them working with you as their asset manager to say, hey, look, I am going to change this from a 2-bedroom with a study into a 3-bedroom. Part of that conversation is, well, it could range from $8,000 to $50,000. It sort of depends what you want to do. So how do you want to handle this thing? And then for them to be able to answer the question, for you to kind of go back and forth, and then you share all of that information. Again, this goes back to the numbers. You know what? The best we can probably do is a 3-bedroom. Even if you spend $50,000 on this thing, is probably an extra $4,000 or $5,000 a year. So, if you're going to sell the place, probably you don't want to spend that $50,000. What you want to do is you want to make that in the next, if you're moving into the place or selling it within the next 3 years. So, it's going to take you 3 years to write that thing off, or 20 years, or whatever it is. Do the $8,000 thing. But if you're going to move into it, then maybe it is worth doing the $50,000 deal. But you want to work with the right person. A lot of contractors, we've all had this problem where you get some work done and then all of a sudden the warranty doesn't necessarily mean what you thought it did. So again, that's why you have the local expert. That's why that local expert can also leverage, those contractors and say, listen, I told this person that you would do this by this time frame, and if you don't do it, then we're not going to be doing business anymore. So you can leverage that as that local, person and so on. Hopefully did I answer your question there?
Yeah, you did. I really appreciate that. I think too, we were talking about like the safety of the destination right now, that right now protecting the destination and the community as important as protecting the home. Which is why a lot of people are working with, city officials and trying to develop those relationships. I think as asset managers, it's more key to, if you think of yourself as an asset manager, you're much more interested in developing those relationships with town city officials than you would be if you just think of yourself as someone who checks in guests and cleans toilets, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Cape San Blas was a great example of that. The trees were still all over the roads, and he was already getting contractors to try and get into properties and fix things. Now, you need to figure out if the property is even, if you can even get into the property, because maybe it is a tear down, and the owner just doesn't want to hear that. So the town is going to kind of manage if this is structurally sound or not. So getting them in quickly, or at least working with the town builder or whoever manages that side of things, and understanding what we need to be looking for, can play a huge difference. Yeah, a lot of our clients are actually have gotten involved by being elected in the area. If you do real estate, you almost have to do that anyway, at least to some degree. You belong to the country club, you run for school board and stuff like that. You need to get your face out there. And the reality is, I think anybody within this industry, it's a smart thing to be part of that community and be as active and outgoing as possible. And in this market, especially because there is so much misinformation. It's getting better now, but there's just so much misinformation that's really just gotten everybody super depressed. If we could just have clear information, then I think most of us would go, you know what? I see the sun in the distance. But because
Right.
there's
I do
so much
think that
crap. Yeah.
the inconsistencies in what we're hearing and the uncertainty is very hard to manage right now.
Yep.
Managing uncertainty, though, is what breaks the market every time. So it's not surprising that it would be hurting ours either. But in this case, some of that market reporting, there are signs, and we're going to talk about this on Thursday and Friday, that there are some KPIs that we can look at to see when, to get some predictive or kind of some leading indicators that things are moving in a different direction. And that market performance stuff is stuff I think owners would like to hear as well. Like
Oh,
when you
huge.
see it, share it with them.
Yeah.
If a property manager wanted to really move into asset management and kind of move, what would be the first thing they would do, Ed?
I think there's a couple things. Number one is you do need to sit down and talk to your owners more. You need to, you need to have a staff member that's their job. And I know most of you do have that, but you really need to, have that deeper conversation with them. Number two is you need to basically invest in the ability for your platform, whatever your software is, to become a platform similar
Right.
to that of some of these, third-party systems. You need to be able to do concierge. You need to be able to pay bills, and bills. There's all kinds of different bills. There's bills out there that are the same every month, and there are bills that change every day. There's tax bills. There's all kinds of bills that are out there. So making sure that the system that you have has the ability to do those types of things. I would also suggest go visit a stock asset manager. Sit through their presentation, understand all of their questions and things like that, and then step back and reflect, from that side of things. I'm happy to, all of you do some of this. The question is, how proactive are you on it? And do you see some other opportunities out there? And you got to step out of your comfort zone. You need to think about this as if it was your own property and all of the services that you do to get your property, successful, comfortable, safe. And then go, okay, how can I share this information with my owners and stuff like that?
Well, Ed, I really appreciate. Let me see if there are any other questions really quickly. Hang on. Does anyone else have a question? You can raise your hand or type it. Let me see. I don't think so. I'm really looking forward to exploring more this year, and to moving in this direction. I think there's a real opportunity here that we haven't fully tapped into in our industry.
I believe that this is the future. If you don't go in this direction, you will become a house cleaner, and that is it. We are so.
Not that there's anything wrong with that,
No,
right?
you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I stand corrected. Absolutely. And for some people, that is
Right.
awesome. So, but I think there's so much more opportunity out here. We are all people. We love, to show our towns off and so on. So, let's really show our towns off, not just to the guests, but, let's help the owners embrace all of that stuff. Now, on our website, if anybody wants to sign up for our blog, we are going to start a set of blogs that are associated with asset management. And what we'll do is pretty much kind of go through each of these items week after week and kind of talk about, here's something that you might want to think about. And honestly, I would love all of your feedback. You all, as I said, do some of this stuff already. I would love more stories on this stuff. It gets other people thinking, which generates more stories, which makes us all a better industry. And I hope, Amy, you and I can, do some stuff together to talk more about these things as well.
Absolutely. I would love to share some of those stories as well. So thank you for joining us here. The presentation materials you're sharing this deck, right?
Sure.
They will be at vrmintellive.com. Again, we've got several other sessions that we're working on right now. It depends on when you're watching this. If you're watching it live with us right now on the 14th, then Thursday and Friday are going to be big days for a lot of what we're recording. If you're watching this at another date, you can just browse through the category page and see all the marketing sessions, the data sessions, revenue management, technology, strategy, property care. There's a lot there. There are also the sessions from the Data and Revenue Management Conference there from last year, which is super interesting. There's some really interesting educational pieces there if you're not as well versed in revenue management, because we're about to go into a time, I believe, where having revenue management skills and knowledge is going to be pretty critical. So definitely take a look at those if you get some extra time over the next month. Ed, Clay, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.